Hey, this is Jake with the Tractor Yard, and today we're going to go through what we do in the shop for annual mower maintenance. Now, we've been doing mower maintenance for about 20 years now, and this is kind of what we do, what we feel is best practice for an annual level mower maintenance. Now, this isn't going to include any transmission service. This is just what we recommend that most customers do every single year to make sure that their mower stays in tip-top shape for mowing season, whether you like to do it at the end of mowing season or right before you pull it out in the beginning of spring. So follow along with us as we go through our process of mower maintenance step by step. Now this is just kind of my quick sketched up checklist. We do have a formal checklist that we go through here at the shop, but the first thing we're going to do is clean off the mower with compressed air and do a visual inspection, just walking around the machine. And then we're gonna actually fire this thing up and do a functional inspection of all of the major systems. We're going to do an in-depth inspection after we've done the functional test. And throughout the inspection process, we're gonna make a list of anything that's missing, damaged, broken, or worn. And then we're going to go through the service process where we're gonna replace the spark plugs, fuel filter, air filter. We don't always replace the air filter, but we'll inspect it and decide depending on the condition. We will do an oil change and filter change. We will put fuel treatment in there. We're gonna inspect the blades. We'll decide if we wanna sharpen or replace them. We're gonna check the tire pressures and make sure that everything is even. We're gonna grease any grease points on the machine. We're gonna check the tracking of the drive arms and adjust if needed. And we're also going to adjust the levelness of the deck if necessary. And at the very end, we're going to do one final function test, because at the end of the day, everything that leaves the shop needs to be running, driving, and mowing like you would expect. Now, we like using these kits right here. If you're interested in one of these, we keep a lot of them in stock. You can give us a call or go on our website and fill out a form, and we'll send you the exact kit that you need for your mower. But we pretty much go through this whole kit on an annual maintenance. The only thing that's kind of optional in our maintenance is the air filter. You know, if it's only a year old or less than a year old, we'll just clean it out. But it is good practice to try to switch that thing out every year if you can. I think most of these kits are like 70 bucks or, you know, give or take $10 or so. Now the first thing I'm gonna do is grab my Radiator Genie. So I'm gonna do a quick spiel on this product because if you own equipment, you want to own one of these Radiator Genies. So I don't really have any affiliation with them, but we do sell them here at the shop. All this is a high pressure air wand. It's adjustable. It's got a good amount of length, and here at the end you can see it's bent into a 90. And then you've got a very small like oval cross section there. So this thing really has some high pressure concentrated air, and it helps get in all these crevices that collect dust and grime. You can use it to blow out underneath your mowing deck. If you get some packed up grass in there, as opposed to lifting the thing up and scraping it, this thing saves your back and saves you a lot of time. The other reason why I wanted to talk about this, when it comes to mower maintenance, I recommend that you almost never clean with water. So you can definitely clean with water on a day that you're not mowing. If you want to spiff this thing up and make it look really nice, by all means, when you're not mowing that day, pull it out of the garage, break out the pressure washer, and clean it up. But never, ever use water to wash your machine after you've been mowing. Why? Well, because a lot of these mowers have sealed bearings almost everywhere now. So there's no way to pump grease into these bearings and flush out any moisture. So what you can do is just make sure that you don't get any unnecessary moisture in there. And after you've been mowing and it's been hot, what happens is all those dimensions will actually expand and allow ingress of water into the bearing surfaces, corrode, and ultimately lower the life of all your bearings. Now I'm talking spindles, pulleys, wheel bearings, all of it. So if you don't take anything else away from this video, buy one of these Radiator Genies and use it to clean your mower off 99% of the time instead of water. All right, now that this thing's clean, I'm gonna walk around and I'm just gonna do a visual inspection and see if there's anything obviously missing, damaged, or needs replaced. And I'm gonna just start at the front of the mower and move around it. So everything on this front looks good. These dust caps, a lot of times, will find their way coming off. Those are there. The tires look a little bit low, but looks like they'll probably take air. The front deck wheels are in great shape, but we are missing one, missing another there. So I'm gonna go ahead and write down that we're missing 2 deck wheels. I'm gonna go ahead and remove these pulley covers. This thing really looks to be in great shape for a 2011 model, and it is 2025. So this one's been either taken really good care of over its life or hadn't been used very much. Holy, air filter from 2013. Wow. 12-year-old air filter. Now that's something. That's definitely getting replaced. So we just had this mower in actually for a repair. If you want to check out our other video, this thing came in as a no start, and we wound up having to replace the battery, the choke cable, and the stop solenoid on the carburetor was froze up. So if you want to check out the no start video, that'll be on the channel as well. So the very last thing that I do for the initial visual inspection is just check out the condition of the drive belt. I just kind of check tension with my hand, make sure that you've got plenty of tension on there, that it's not going to slip on you. And then I'm going to feel and look around for weather cracking, and honestly, I'm gonna say that drive belt is good, at least for another season. Same with the deck belt. I don't see any noticeable chunks that are gonna cause this guy any problems this year. There is a little bit of an abrasion there. So I might note it down and just kind of let him know. It might be a good idea to keep one on hand, but so I'm gonna fire this thing up and just make sure that it's running okay, that the parking brake's working, you know, that this is tracking normally, that the blades engage and sound correct, that there's not any noise in the deck area. Just kind of do a function test and make sure that this works as expected. Now there's lots of fuel treatment out there. We use this Seafoam Auto Marine Fleet motor treatment for most purposes. You definitely want to check on this bottle and make sure you're not using too much or too little. But I like to treat both tanks if there's both tanks. And in this case, this thing's running really rough. So I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead to the fuel filter and change it. I'm going to shoot a little bit of this straight into the intake and put some treatment in both reservoirs. And then I'm going to let it run. It needs to run for a little bit anyways before we drain that engine oil. So let's see if we can run some fuel treatment through this thing and get it running well enough to kick these blades on. So since this thing's running rough and we know that all the deck components are free and spinning, I'm going to go ahead and do the engine service and try to get this thing running as well as I can. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this air filter. And I went ahead and marked it. Of course, it's a little dark there, but I went ahead and marked it so that the next guy knows how long it's been since the air filter was replaced. I did go ahead and throw a little bit of fuel treatment down the intake. I put some fuel treatment in each tank. I think I'll go ahead and put a little bit more fuel in this thing. after I change that fuel filter, I'm gonna go ahead and replace the spark plugs, and then I'm gonna let it run for a little while, see if we can get it to clear up, and then I'll do the oil change. So there's other ways to do this, but it's definitely nice to have some of these fuel line clamps to keep from spilling fuel everywhere when you change the fuel filter. So those fuel line pliers or those fuel line clamps are only going to catch most of that fuel from coming through, so I like to keep a rag underneath just to sop up some of the mess. Sometimes when these things have been on for a decade, you've got to kind of twist them to get them freed up. So really the biggest thing with these fuel filters is just make sure that you have the direction of flow correct. So you can see the flow arrow on this one from the tank side to the carburetor side, just like the one that came off. Always like looking at these spark plugs to see if there's anything obvious as far as running issues. And this one doesn't look too bad. It's a little on the dark side, so maybe if anything, running a little rich, which this thing did have a busted choke cable, so that could explain a little bit of overfueling. Now I'm using an electric ratchet to get these spark plugs out, which is not really the right way to do it. If you don't have a good feel for these, I would recommend using a hand ratchet for loosening and tightening these, because the last thing you want to do is strip out your head. So this one's a little bit lighter, but still quite a bit of carbon buildup, but really nothing too concerning about those plugs. But never a bad idea to swap them out. Definitely don't want to over tighten your spark plugs, and make sure you get a good crisp clicking sound and feel when you get these boots put back on. So the next thing I'm going to do is just let the oil drain, and unfortunately this shot was a little bit out of frame, but all these small engines, especially on zero-turn mowers, are going to have like a plastic drain tube. This one had a brass cap on it, so a couple of crescent wrenches gets that cap off, and we can drain the engine oil. So as that's draining, I'm going to make sure that this deck is all the way up. That's going to relieve as much tension off of this belt as possible. I'm just going to roll this deck belt off. And I'm going to isolate each pulley and just listen for basically the sound of dry bearings or any grinding or anything like that. So that one seems pretty good. I think all I'm hearing there is some of that twine on the bottom of that blade spinning around. I'm going to move these up and down, check for any play. That idler's great. That spindle's maybe a touch dry, but those bearings feel generally really good. That tensioner is in great shape. Idler feels good, no play. And again, you got a little bit of noise on that outer spindle, but I don't think I'm going to suggest replacing or rebuilding at this point in time. Then to roll this back on, I like to just put it on one side, keep tension with my palm, and then grab back here on the belt and just roll it back on. So for the purposes of doing an annual service, we normally do about 20 PSI in the front tires and 12 in the rear. It's kind of totally up to your preference, but that's kind of what we normally shoot for. Really the biggest thing is just making sure that you're even left to right before you go checking the levelness of your deck. That way you're not making an adjustment due to an improper tire inflation level. Now, engine oil is still kind of dripping back there. So I'm going to go ahead and lift the front end of this up so we can get access to our blades. Now there's plenty of ways to get access to your blades. This is probably the easiest way without buying a special tool or a lift. But I like to just lift right there underneath the front edge of the deck. And really I just want enough height here so that I can get underneath it with an impact wrench and get those blades off. Now there are lots of cool tools on the market, like the Mojack. That's a really nice safe tool that we actually sell here. So it's basically got two hoops that you drive your front tires up onto, and then you just crank up and jack up the front end with a hand crank. And it's got a nice safety lock and everything. That's probably one of the best ways to do it if you're going to regularly service your own mower. Highly recommend the Mojack. Now, if you're going to be taking your blades on and off quite a bit, I highly recommend getting a high torque half-inch anvil impact wrench. This one's the Hercules brushless Ultra Torque from Harbor Freight. We use and abuse this thing, and honestly, I think it's probably one of the best high torque guns on the market. especially for the money. So looking at these blades, once I got them off, I thought that I'd be able to sharpen these without taking too much material off, but some of the pitting from hitting rocks or concrete or whatever they were hitting were just a little bit too deep for my comfort level of sharpening. Now, I could probably spend a considerable amount of time and get these sharpened up, and if they were my personal blades, I might do that. But in terms of just efficiency for the customer, it's honestly going to be better for them to buy a new set of blades. So normally I'm looking at the sail and trying to figure out if the sail has plenty of life, and then I'm looking at the front edge of the blade to see if I can take just a little bit of material off and get them sharpened up, or if I'm going to have to take so much material off it's either going to be too time consuming or it's going to burn up the blade. And in this case, it was just going to be too time consuming, and I was worried about taking off too much material. So make sure when you're replacing your blades, you just make note of how your blades came off. Typically, they're going to be pretty obvious because your sail is going to point up. So this back side's your sail pointing up, and your leading edge is going to angle downwards and generally flat on the bottom. Okay, so by now all of our engine oil should be drained out. So I'm going to tighten this drain plug back up and then pull the oil filter. So I'm going to grab a filter wrench. Get that spun off. So I'm going to grab the fresh filter from our kit and 2 quarts of engine oil. This kit came with 10W30. Honestly, there's an entire rabbit hole that we can go down in terms of what engine oil is the best for your engine based on your area and your application. Honestly, in my opinion, just buy a good small engine with zinc additive, synthetic blend oil. Doesn't really matter what brand it is. We carry Kawasaki brand. For our area, our Kawasaki rep recommends that we run 2050, especially through the summertime, and 1030 through the wintertime. But like I said, as long as you're getting a decent synthetic blend, zinc additive, you're really not going to go wrong in terms of engine oil for your machine. Obviously, the best thing you can do is go by the chart in your engine manual. I do like to pre-fill just a little bit on these. Too much and it just pours out, but I like to saturate it and get that gasket covered so that it seals properly. And then on my engine oil filters, I just like to go hand tight, and then I usually just grab it with my towels here and get as tight as I possibly can by hand. So as far as engine oil capacity goes, almost every single twin cylinder small gas engine out on the market today pretty much takes, give or take, 2 quarts right on the nose. So when I'm doing a service, I always just put 2 quarts in, run it, and then check. Now I definitely recommend that you go by the capacity on your engine manual, but just from experience, if you got a twin cylinder gas engine, it's probably going to take right at 2 quarts. And it might show a touch high right after you fill it, but keep in mind that that oil filter needs to be fully saturated too. So I usually run it, like I said, for a few minutes, then give it one final check. So I just did my walk around on everything that we noted. The 2 deck wheels that are missing, I'll just have to get with the customer and see if they want to replace those. The battery hold down, I tightened it up, replaced the air filter. Instead of sharpening the blades, we replaced those. The drive arm was loose, I went ahead and tightened it. The blade's killing the engine. That was due to the running issue, and we resolved that by the service and running some fuel treatment through it. Front right tire going flat, it seems to be holding good. We'll monitor that overnight. So the final couple things that I want to check are going to be the charging system. So when I do the last function test here, I'll throw my voltmeter on there and make sure that the charging system is pulling that battery up to 13.8, 14 volts roughly there, and make sure that that system is working like it should. I did the spark plugs, the fuel filter, the air filter, the oil change, the fuel treatment, the blades, the tire pressures. I just need to grease and check the tracking and the deck level and do one final test drive. And I'm going to cheat a little bit on the grease. And I'm going to use my electric grease gun. Grease. And then the last thing I like to do is check the deck level. And I normally check it around that 3 mark. You know, I like to check it at the height that I would normally mow. And the way you really check the deck level is measuring on a flat surface from the leading edge to the concrete on the front edge and on the back edge. And most decks you'll have 4 points of adjustment, so you can tilt the deck left and right, and you can pitch it forward and back. Now, you don't necessarily have to measure, you just need a good solid point of reference. So I'm going to take just this magnet stick, and I'm going to make a little mark, and I'm going to do my side to side first. Measure about the same place on each side. So you can see that this deck is way out of adjustment. You've got a lot of pitch over to that other side. So I'm going to adjust these hangers so that we lower this left side to match the right. So to lower this side, I'm going to run this turnbuckle out. So my rear on this side is really much too high, so I'm going to drop it down. In here, I want about a 1/4 inch pitch forward, and there I've got, you know, about 1 inch. So to drop the rear of the deck down, I'm going to take loose this bolt right here on that rear hanger and just lower the deck down to the height that I want it, and then tighten that bolt back up. So leveling your deck can be a little bit of a game of cat and mouse. but you've got generally 4 adjustment points to play with to kind of get everything as even as possible. Key takeaway with adjusting your deck level is you definitely want to do it at the level that you're mowing at, because depending on which machine you have, the geometry can shift a little bit as you raise and lower the deck. The last things we're going to do is check our tracking, and the way I normally do that is start it up, go low throttle, and then push both arms all the way forward and see if we're tracking one way to the left or to the right. What you have to remember is that you have a transmission, a transaxle on each rear wheel on all your 0 turns. So there's a pretty good chance that one of them is going to be driving a little faster than the other. And all we're going to do if we're off one way or the other is make an adjustment to the arm geometry, and a lot of these have a little different setup. On this particular mower, might be difficult to see. Let me grab the camera and move it closer. But if you can see where that drive arm is touching that bolt, that's actually just a mechanical stop. So what you can do is come around and loosen that nut and move this bolt up or down to shorten or lengthen your throw on each arm to basically adjust for any off tracking. And then the very last thing we're going to do is check the voltage here as we're running and make sure that we're coming up from static voltage. So going from, roughly 12.5 to hopefully 13.5 up to 14. That's going to tell us that our charging system is working properly. So that about wraps up our mower maintenance video. This is the same process we've gone through with some minor adjustments over the last 20 years. I feel like it's a pretty good comprehensive service that you can do yourself at home. Again, if you want one of those kits, you can call us at 918-486-4464 or visit us online at www.thetractoryard.com. If you have any questions at all about mower service or maintenance, you can drop those questions down in the comments. If you have any tips and tricks that you do for your annual mower maintenance, feel free to share that as well. I hope this video was informative to you. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Maybe you've got lawns to mow, maybe you've got fields to grow. I'll tell you right now where you need to go. Get out in the yard, the tractor yard. They've got what you got in mind, and they're not gonna waste your time. A family company, a new